Let me ask you something. Are you getting everything out of your rent-to-own business? If you're not an A-Pro member, then the answer is probably no. Look, advocacy is A-Pro's bread and butter. This is why they were created and what they do best. But here's the thing. A-Pro membership is about way more than advocacy. A-Pro connects you to the movers and the shakers of the industry, people who've been there, done that, and they can help you do it even better. A-Pro's monthly webinars give you expert insights and actionable takeaways. It's like having a masterclass for your business every single month. Got questions about complex regulations or sticky situations? No problem. A-Pro's legal hotline gives you direct access to experts who have got the answers. That's a peace of mind that you can't put a price on. And let's not forget the resources, news, updates, and tools that keep you ahead of the curve. Scholarships for your team? Check. Disaster relief when you need it most? Double check. A-Pro is your ultimate support system in the rent-to-own world. So stop settling for less. With A-Pro, members get more. More support, more connections, and more success. Head over to rtohq.org and join the A-Pro family today. Because in this business, more isn't just better. It's essential. See you at the top with A-Pro. Hello and welcome to the RTO Show podcast. Guys, it is Pete Chow here going over with you everything rent to own, and I have an immediately amazing guest here, somebody who's best friends with the podcast, I got to say, because they really help us out a lot. Wow Brands, Ryan Krass takes care of us very well. But I want you guys to know before we do this, you guys need to listen to what's going on the newsletter. You need to read it. You need to check it out because there's a lot going on there. Go onto the website, the rtoshowpodcast.com. Check that out. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. Ryan, my man, how are you doing today? How's everything over there? And most importantly, how's the doctorates going?
Thanks for having me on again, Pete. This is always a fun conversation. I enjoy our talks.
Absolutely.
It is going good, man. We are, it is an interesting year to say the least. A lot of things are changing and we are doing our damnedest to try to keep up with it and make sure we're on top of it. But, it's been an interesting 6 months. That is for sure.
Well, just so you guys know, Wow Brands takes care of a lot of things when it comes to rent to own. They basically control the online space of how you're going to get seen, what your website looks like, the traffic that gets to it, and what you're going to do with that. How he can dissect that information is amazing. One of the things that happened the other day is, so I'm going over my reports as I normally do. I check online spaces. I check what's going on in the news, and Ryan puts out some information because he knows that, like he said, in the last 6 months, there's been huge changes in the traffic on what's going on rent to own, how people look things up, the retail buying space, how you're going to get things sold, and more importantly, how it affects you in the financial space, because everything is changing in the way people are looking for products, the way they're looking for retail sales and what they're looking for. Ryan, tell me, when did you start first noticing these changes, these ripples that are starting to come out, and then what caused you to dive into it?
I would say that I guess I think about marketing probably a different way than most other people do. I don't perceive marketing as, well, let me say it this way. I perceive marketing as being a lagging indicator, meaning what you see in the marketing data is a reflection of behavior. And that behavior had already been changed 3 or 6 months ago. So what you see in marketing data is really not it's a rear view mirror perspective. And there are times, which I believe 2026 is one of those, that you can't look in the rear view mirror anymore. Things changed, in my opinion. First off, they started changing in November, December-ish with the way in which AI took off, really in, let's say, December 2025. But the thing that I really saw coming, I think, was related to how I thought rent-to-own consumer search was going to change as we started to get into the new year. And this was really a byproduct of what I noticed or what I saw going on specifically with the Iran war. And I'm not trying to get political on this, but there are aspects to marketing that, that's not the right way to say it. Macroeconomics and what's going on with the economy determines what's going to happen with the consumer. Those are things that no matter what you're trying to sell or what you're trying to do, if the consumer doesn't have money, it's a relevant statement. And that's really what we saw happening in February-ish. So February, March, when the Iran war started, to me, it was completely obvious. This was going to, without a question, spike gas prices. It did, right? So it did. We're up 60% year over year in gas prices. but that doesn't hit all consumers equally at all. If you're in the bottom, let's say 40% of the economic ladder, it hits you in a very disproportionate way. So at the end of the month, historically, if you had, let's say, $300 left over after you've paid all your fixed cost bills, you would then have $300 of discretionary spend to put wherever you want. But that's not what happens with oil prices or gas prices. You have these times in which things change and you have step changes. And what we saw then is a step change of a 50% price increase in gas. And we're about 4 months later, and there's no indication of that coming back down. So what that meant for me was that's going to change marketing over the next 6 months. It's going to change marketing very drastically. Trying to rely on the old sales practices and try to rely on the old marketing practices aren't going to work. For lots of reasons. One is the consumer is changing as a byproduct of AI. But number two, and the much larger point, is that consumers are going to be changing in so much as what they have the ability to spend.
Let's tackle that. When you say that consumer spending changes because of AI, and I know that you've said a lot about the AI versus the way it used to be searched as just a plain online Google search. Now there's the AI search. Now there's different ways that people are shopping. Can you explain that to me? Explain that. How is it different now than it was 6-7 months ago? And, where I was reading with some of the stuff that you guys were talking about, some stuff you were talking about was the click ratios of where they're going to, as opposed to where it is right now. It's completely different. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning of the year. At that point in time, it was somewhere around 50% of searches that took place did not result in a click. So what does that mean? Somebody's going to Google, they're typing in a phrase or a search, and right on that page, at the top of the page, they're getting their answer. So if you're asking a question to Google, you go search, you get your answer in that AI overview section of the website, at the section of Google, and the byproduct of that is consumers never click that link and go to the end website anymore. So what this is going to do, what it already has done, and really what it's going to do over the next 24 months, is change the way in which consumers and shopping takes place. The first part of that is less consumers are going to go from Google to a website. That's just a fact. That's what's already happening. That's kind of a known. If you're, this is also why you see so many news organizations going out of business right now, or anybody that's in the content world really struggling. And the reason you're struggling is because historically, prior to this year, or as you get into early sometime last year, if you needed to search something, you searched, you went to Google, you asked a question, and you then went and clicked on 10 links on the website, tried to synthesize your answer. You looked at 10 different rent-to-own websites, decided who you're going to buy from, what you're going to buy, what you're going to do. And then you came up with a decision, you made your choice. That doesn't happen anymore. At least not nearly as much as it used to. And all indications are that's not going to stop at all. So what's happening now is you're asking a question and you're getting an answer, but you're not getting that answer from the retailer website. You're getting that answer from Google. Or if you're using any form of like a Chat GPT or a Claude or whatever, those are all really the same thing. AI overview is almost the same thing as Claude, which is almost the same thing as Gemini. But as you search on any of those platforms or any of those topics, you do a search, you get your answer right there. You do not have to click and go anywhere to get an answer.
Yeah, let me ask you a quick question, because I understand that. I was reading some of the work. And when we do that, I'm going to tell you right now, every single time that I go to Google, I'm like 99%, I go with the top part, right? It does give me that thing, and I really don't click to anything else, and that's why it resonated with me.
But I want to stop right there, because that isn't the case a year ago. That's the difference.
Right.
You normally would have clicked on a site and you would have went to the retailer website or to the customer website or the company website. That is not there anymore. The trick, the marketing job has changed from trying to get the consumer to the website, which is still a goal. Don't get me wrong. That's still always the goal. But you have to feed the machine, because if you're not feeding it the right data in the right location in the right way, you're never showing up in that overview. And if you don't show up in that overview, you're not a consideration.
Then you're dead.
You're dead.
So let me ask you a question. Then why does Gemini not get used? Because Gemini is the Google's AI. Why does Gemini not get used as much as ChatGPT, as not much as Anthropic or Claude or whatever? Why is that the case? Even though we're using Google and we're getting that, how is that not correlating? I am very curious to understand that.
There's a couple answers to that, and it is getting used. It's just not getting used in the way that you perceive it. So you just said you go to Google and you do an AI, so you do a search, and the top block there is an answer. That is Gemini. So even though
Okay.
you may not be using it directly, you are using it. So that's part one. But part two is they just signed a contract with Apple that they're going to replace the backbone of Siri with Gemini. So that's coming. And I think
Wow.
I'm not actually sure if that's rolled out or that's coming this year, but so that will replace the reliance of ChatGPT on Apple products to Gemini. And secondary, or I guess third, it's already installed native on your phone. So 50% of the population has an Android phone. So it is getting used and it is there. The model itself is behind. They're trying to catch up on that, but it is getting used. It's not as if it's not going to go anywhere. It just doesn't have the, let's say, the same depth of consumers understanding that that's what they're using because you're using it every time you're using Google.
Well, when you say feed the machine, I want to peel that back a little bit because I understand what you're saying, but I want to make sure that I understand fully. When you say feed the machine, you're saying that Google needs to scrub your website for whatever information it needs, because if it doesn't, you don't get put, your information does not get put in that little box when you Google something. It doesn't get put in that box. In other words, so if it does send them somewhere or they do go somewhere, it's not even going to be close to what you have, because even though your website could look amazing, it could be new, it could be wonderful, it could operate quickly, if it doesn't have the information that it needs, you won't even make it to what they're looking for, and that's it. Basically,
Yep.
it's dead.
Yeah, I would, as much as I would say I dislike this, where this is heading is it's moving closer and it's moving further and further away from the retailer website and closer to the consumer's end device. So historically, you were going to the website to collect that information. You're generally not going to go, well, in many cases, you're not going to go to the website to collect that information anymore. You're going to rely on an AI or an AI synthesis of some fashion to go to the website, extract that data, and get the answer for you. There's a video that I like to play from, I believe it was Larry Page from early 2000, who is the CEO of Google. And in that video from 2000, Larry Page says he's talking about what the future of Google is going to be. And he says the future of Google is effectively, I want to ask it a question and it give me an answer, because that's what AI is. AI is the ability to ask a question and get an answer. No consumer really wants to go to Google, type in a phrase, and click on 10 different links, go find the website, go find what they're looking for, synthesize the data, make an educated decision, and try to go based off that. That's just not the objective of any person. What they want is to be able to ask a question to get an answer, and they're going to do that. Now, how you present your information to the AI tools that are going to be the ones that are really crawling and searching the web, that's going to be the determining factor over the next couple of years. And to add on to that, Cloudflare came out with which is a popular internet backbone. It came out with some data a couple months ago that said 50% of all web traffic at this point is AI agents. So it's when you go to
Wow.
ChatGPT and ask a question, well, it doesn't just ask a question. It's still got to go to the website to try to collect data, extract that data, give it something that's up to date and recent, because it doesn't have anything that's up to date or recent inherently. The AI models you're using were rendered 9 months ago, not something that were rendered in the last couple months.
I want to ask about something directly related to RTO and what you're saying, but I want to. So every time that I talk to my AI, right? Every time that I talk to Claude, because I have Claude Pro, and I do it, it'll give me a box of, like, depending on what I type in, like 10 different websites that it's checking, but it doesn't go 1, 2, 3. It's like, boom, there's like 10, and it's searching 10, and then it comes back and gives me whatever answer that I'm looking for. Is that why the
Yes.
traffic is so different? Because you ask one question and it doesn't click one at a time. I mean, it's going to go check 10 different websites for all these answers, come back, compile it, and put it in within 5 seconds or less,
Yep.
and then give you this answer. So now all this web traffic is not really somebody clicking through. How does that relate to our RTO websites? Because I'm going to be real honest, and I just telling you guys, our websites have never been on the cutting forefront of what web traffic should be. And now that you're saying the way AI is built, it could be almost dead last.
Absolutely. I mean, the what's going to come next on this is I think, extremely interesting. We're in an interesting industry with a lot of, let's say, different websites that are some of them are organized, some of them are not. Some of the data is structured, some of it is not. But what will happen over the next couple of years is more and more of your discovery process and your consumer and how consumers find you are just going to come through the AI tools. They're dumping trillions of dollars a year into this, and they're trying to make it so that they can own the entire process. I would point you to Google. It was Google I/O conference, which is their annual developer conference, and there's about a 15-minute section in there from earlier this year. And in that process, what they announced is what they are trying to do is move the checkout process, the buying process, further away from the retailer website and closer to the Google process. So the end objective of what Google is trying to accomplish is you'll be able to build a shopping cart out on Google from all the different websites and be able to check out one shopping cart for 10 different websites.
Wow.
That's what they announced in, I think, March of this year. And they called Universal Commerce is the name for it. And they're really heading in that direction. Will they get there? I don't know. But when the industry leader is telling you this is where we're going, you kind of have to listen to what they're doing.
Okay. So, but I would almost find that counterintuitive because I've seen the ad spend for Google last year. People are paying a ton of money for Google to say, I'm going to put your ad first. I'm going to put it here and I'm going to put it there. But if the amount of searching gets done through AI versus me clicking all over the place, I'm spending a whole lot of money for people maybe to possibly never see the ad that I just spent a ton of money on. So how does that work for an RTO retailer? Not only do I not probably have the most up-to-date website? Because, let's just be honest. There is a lot of mom and pop guys out there, whether it be 2-store, 20 stores. It's still expensive to run a very, very nice website and to make sure that it's all up to date and inventory is fresh and all that case. So that's what usually stamps it down. It's just it's hard to invest that money. Okay, so I don't have the Amazon version of an RTO website, so that kind of puts me a little bit behind. Now I have AI, and if somebody puts in, I want that leather sofa, they might not come to my website at all, right? They might be bypassed because they're gonna see different aspects of it. And if you do go a little lower, there's these little boxes that tell you, hey, you can get one at Wayfair for $7.99. You can get one at Ashley for $6.49. You can get one on eBay for $3.40, whatever the case is, right? So like in those situations, RTO dealers can't go to Google and say, hey, I want to spend more money on my advertising because I want to be seen more, and then not get seen. So how does that work?
So, of course, Google's not going to just totally shoot themselves in the foot on this.
Right.
They've introduced new ad concepts or new ad stuff that they're testing related to AI. So there's AI search ads that are going to be part of that. So that's the big product that they've been pushing. And as somebody who runs a decent amount of RTO ads, we get calls about this from Google on a daily basis, where they're trying to get you to move over to their updated bidding platform that handles AI bidding. But to the larger point, what it will do is reduce the number of competitors. That's going to happen because AI ad space is a lot more limited than traditional search ad spaces. So that's simply going to mean that the cost per lead is going to go up a hell of a lot, and the number of leads are probably going to be unevenly distributed, meaning the person that can afford to pay the most is the person that's going to get the leads.
In that sense, is it possible that we're going to get, and I'm only throwing these names around because this is the way the hierarchy works in the RTO world, but does that mean that RTO is going to be basically run by, let's say, Rent-A-Centers, Aaron's, and Buddy's because they have the bigger ad spend, and then the normal guys who have 20 to 40 stores are really going to be trying to figure out how to be seen?
It's a good question. I would tell you that we do tracking on this. So we do have stats where we track and it's not official data because you can't get official, but I do track Aaron's ad spend. I track Rent-A-Center ad spend, and I track specifically as specifically as it relates to paid ads on Google. So we do track that stuff, and I can tell you definitively around November-ish of last year, they all massively ramped up their ad spend. How do I know that? Because, well, I got the data. Number one, I can cross-reference, see how many times they showed up, where they showed up, what they showed up for. So we have that. But number two, I also see it in the auxiliary data as it relates to what we're spending money on. So I can tell you that the cost per lead for things like furniture has skyrocketed in the last 60 to 90 days. The cost per lead. So not only do I see it on the estimated traffic flow, I see it in the real life data of the ad spend and the money that we're managing, in so much as you can tell when cost per lead is going up or cost per click is going up, you can tell that there's new advertisers that have come in. And there is also a decent amount of data that will show you who your direct competitors are on ad targeting. So you can tell, am I showing up ahead of my competition? Is my or my competition showing up in places that I'm not showing up type of scenarios. But yes, I do think that it does run a risk there of creating a duopoly or I would guess probably duopoly in this case, of that type of business. What I would say though is that just means that you have to change where you're competing at. Don't try to compete on that necessarily. First off, there's a lot of places where Aaron's and Renison are not at. There's a lot of places where Buddies aren't at, and those are the places. Those are very easy, low dollar value conversions in most scenarios. But number two is the algos are still rigged for local businesses, and there are massive, massive opportunities to beat the larger players in this industry just by focusing on what you're really, really good at, which is things that they can't be good at.
Let me ask you something. Are you getting everything out of your rent-to-own business? If you're not an A-Pro member, then the answer is probably no. Look, advocacy is A-Pro's bread and butter. This is why they were created and what they do best. But here's the thing. A-Pro membership is about way more than advocacy. A-Pro connects you to the movers and the shakers of the industry. People who've been there, done that, and they can help you do it even better. A-Pro's monthly webinars give you expert insights and actionable takeaways. It's like having a masterclass for your business every single month. Got questions about complex regulations or sticky situations? No problem. A-Pro's legal hotline gives you direct access to experts who have got the answers. That's a peace of mind that you can't put a price on. And let's not forget the resources, news, updates, and tools that keep you ahead of the curve. Scholarships for your team? Check. Disaster relief when you need it most? Double check. A-Pro is your ultimate support system in the rent-to-own world. So stop settling for less. With A-Pro, members get more. More support, more connections, and more success. Head over to rtohq.org and join the A-Pro family today. Because in this business, more isn't just better. It's essential. See you at the top with A-Pro.
Okay. I mean, as much as I listen to this, I mean, my thought process is, are we eventually going to start sending out mail because we can't compete on an online space? I mean, we're going to be literally yard bombing everybody because we don't, I mean, that's the only way we can guarantee that they're going to see our front page news and rent to own. I mean, it just seems like, it seems so overwhelming and insurmountable. Now, I know that you do this on a daily basis. And so if there is a place to go for online information, how do you show up? How do you get regulated? How do you get seen and turn an RTO lead into a sale? Wow Brands doesn't want to do it, but it's scary because a lot of what you're saying is there is something out there that is fundamentally changing not only the way we've done things, and it's, it could be 10-year cycles. You just said 6 months ago. And it has completely fundamentally changed a lot of the way I do things. Now Google's getting behind Siri and the way that AI is. It's almost like, we talk a little bit about politics, but it seems like almost like nowadays it's like, hey, are you a chat? No, I'm a Claude. Or no, I'm a Gronk. No, it's like, are you serious? Like we talk about those things, and it's like, well, this one does this because I'm, business, well, chat makes me great looking pictures. And that's what I like, and it's just like, wait a minute. It's fundamentally changed everything. Now, kind of starting back where we, in the beginning, coming through here, we were talking, before about some of the phrases, some of the things that started changing and coming up, right? It wasn't necessarily retail. Now it's almost like the relevance behind fixing, repairing, changing the search terms that are really coming up because of the fundamental change, like you said, where there's more going out. We don't have as much discretionary income. We don't have as much that we can really, even Netflix is going up again, so I heard. So it's one of those things like even my everyday is going up for whatever reason. It's moving on up, whether it's even fighting for ad space and look, they can't get as many clicks. You know what? Somebody's going to pay for it. Okay. Yep. So then what are the terms that are really popping up now, and what, in your mindset, why are they changing to these, and how is this affecting rent-to-own?
Sure. So I would say starting at the beginning, when we get into, I would say it was late February, early March, knowing that the consumer that we deal with, or in general, is going to have less money to deal with. The first thing that I wanted to do was go back and look at what are the historical analogs to this, because it's not the first time we've had an inflation shock. And maybe the first time in my lifetime, it's probably the first time in your lifetime, but it's not the first time this has happened. This has happened twice in the 70s. It happened in the 50s. We've had shocks like this before. So the real question is, what happens? What happens? And so we modeled it out, and the first 3 months after a shock like this, you see a cut And what does that mean? Well, first off, they just stop spending. They just completely stop spending. And we could track this along with where we see the leads data coming from. So as you went into March, April, May, the trend was down. I mean, we're still comping from what we're doing. We're still comping up year over year, but the trend was clearly heading down, and it was heading down pretty fast. After about 3 months, though, the consumer can't just not spend. The
Right.
washer that broke has to be fixed. The TV that stopped working, you need to replace. The laptop that you were using for work, you can't get by with it anymore. So as you get into month 3, 4, 5, so I should say 4, 5, and 6, what you start to see, I should say in the first 3 months, what you see is complete stop of spending, and then the trade down. How do I get things for cheaper? How do I start to find things for cheaper? Cheap appliances, used appliances, those types of phrases. And really, as you get into month 4 and 5, that's when we saw the change just started skyrocketing. So what I mean by skyrocketing is if you go and look right now, first off, rent-to-own phrases are still at their all-time high, meaning they are higher today than they were in COVID, which is a big number. So that's still the case. But number two, what has really, really skyrocketed in the last 90 to 120 days is cheap appliances, used appliances, cheap, just the word cheap, the word used, any place that they can save money, those terms are at an all-time high. It is everything related to trading down and how do I do more with less. The other data point that I would correlate this with is buy now, pay later. Klarna reported 44% increase year over year in Q1. Afterpay did, I think it was 35%. Like these are insane numbers year over year. It's the same thing. So as you really get into Q1, Q2 of this year, that the spending had been cut. The question from our standpoint was we have to move. We started moving ad spend in March because we knew this was coming. We knew the focus had to be on cheap. We knew that there are things that are going to get kicked off as down the road. You know, we're hitting that window right now where you should really start to see some of the durables come back. Things like washers and dryers really are going to start coming back, in my opinion, just because you can only push those purchases off so long. And we're hitting in that window right now where that's starting to turn or let's say roll over again. And that is, it's rolling over in a positive direction, which is a change of pace. And we're hitting that phase. There's probably a couple more months here of positive comps. But if things don't change by month 10 or 12, start to head back down again. That's kind of historically how these things play out.
So if I'm an RTO dealer, how do I, knowing what you know, and I know that the people that you work with, they're going to call you. I'm pretty sure that they have your phone number and they're probably dialing you at all times of night. But like, if that's the situation and you see it coming, you're explaining it to me, I'm going to sit back and the first thing I'm going to think, besides, oh my God, I've got to really reshape things. The second thing would be, okay, there's a reaction to this. I need to react to what is going on and make it as well to right as I possibly can. What does a rent-to-own dealer do in this sense? Because you're right. If these search terms are getting bigger and we're talking about, repairing, cheapest, lowest priced, budget, whatever the case is, how do I get in front of that to be a part of at least whatever traffic I am going to get or part of the AI model to reflect that I have these terms that people might be interested in?
Yeah, I would say, the first part of it is you got to change the narrative a little bit of what you're pushing. You got to change the narrative. You got to change the messaging. You got to try to change the story around what you're doing. I'm a kind of the mindset that you want to be focusing more on durable goods right now, more than probably anything else. That's to me, the low hanging fruit. You also have a hell of a lot of used inventory that you could probably start to offload here. And some of the things that we've been working on are building things out like clearance corners where some of our customers can just start to list and sell their used or slightly used or cheap inventory, quote unquote, direct to consumer. So I think all of those kind of play into that. And part of it is just understanding what the economic landscape that you're in is right now. There's no indication that this is going to slow. Historically, these are the types of times when rent-own really, really, really accelerates, but they don't accelerate in month 4, 5, and 6. They accelerate as you start to get into month 10 or 12, where buy now, pay later is out. They're tapped out. You're starting to get defaults in these things. And once you start to get default in those things, they're going to cut back on lending standards, which that's where RTO accelerates that.
Right. So, and I agree with you, right? We need to start off-selling some of the things that have been pre-leased and pre-loved. We fix it up, but we can take less margins on that and whatever the case is. But if I have a website, right, I don't want to change the face of that website to start advertising mom's
Sure.
pre-leased washing machines. So, you mentioned before local is still there. Is that where you start off? You leave your regular website as is, my RTO, loveyou.com. And then what I do is I go and start advertising in where? In like, is this a great time to talk about Facebook Marketplace? Is this a good time to talk about, different areas that you might say, offer up or whatever the case is, and start pushing those?
Well, I like having it as a section on your website, first off, because that does allow you to trigger and go after things like cheap appliances or used appliances. So you do want to have it on the site. It's not, you don't want to not have it there. So that is part one. You do want it there. But yes, I think these are times where these are times where this will very much depend on your market. If you're in a rural market, just having it on your website is almost going to be enough to show up number one or number two on Google. If you're in larger cities where there's going to be lots of appliance stores and you've got a lot of competition, that's a much different conversation. But just having it on your site, at least for the dealers that we manage, the sites are structurally sound enough that you can generally still rank for things like cheap appliances, especially in the rural markets. The cities are a little bit different of a story. And any off-site marketing you can do, such as Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or any of those things, are positive developments, because unlike the way that search used to operate, the way that AI operates, all those data sources talking about you is a positive thing. It doesn't matter if you're just on Craigslist, if you're on Facebook, or if you're on Twitter, or you're on whatever. All of those are still telling you a story about the company that we care about here. And all of those do play into the same thing. So if Facebook, for example, Facebook's a bad example because it's walled off. But let's say Twitter. If you're posting about it on Twitter or something like that was publicly available, well, they're making the association with rent-to-own company A and cheap appliances. Those are two positive associations you want to have, anyways.
But if I have a website, I have an RTO store, and I'm going, Ryan, you guys handle my stuff. Wow Brands has handled my stuff for a while. How do I make my cheap stuff look sexy, right? I don't want it to look like I'm putting the 1969 Caddy, El DeVille, is that what it is? The DeVille on there, with spinner rims. I mean,
Sure.
How do you make that look sexy in a world where, people expect their websites to look, you can make it look sexy. Is it in the wording? And that's why I'm asking, like, is it in the wording? I mean, because pictures are not a big play, right?
Well, the pictures matter. You want to have people do still shop primarily off photos. So they're going to shop primarily off photos. You want to have good photos. You want to have, but you can stage and get good photos. And you need to have good content explaining what the washer is, what kind of condition it is in. Is it bad? Has it been sitting for 20 years? You need to have all of those types of bases covered in this process. But remember that, especially as it relates to AI, they're not coming to the site anyways. They're coming to their AI tool, which is asking the question, which determines whether or not your website's even valid enough to send traffic to.
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying. I mean, I know that pictures matter, but I guess the descriptions and where you have it and what you have it is really what's feeding the engine, not necessarily the picture. The picture is like an end result of when I finally get there, I get to look at it. But it's the AI saying, I'm scrubbing all this, and I found a couple of keywords over here on their website that says cheap, pre-leased, pre-loved, reduced price, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
And so what exactly are these keywords that people are now looking up that somebody would say in the RTO world, I better start thinking about using these terms if I'm not with Wow Brands right now?
Sure. I can just walk through the list, like washer repair, used washer and dryer, cheap washer and dryer, washer dryer rental, washer dryer payment plans, rent to own washer and dryer, same day delivery washer and dryer. And that's washers, furniture, cheap furniture, used furniture, furniture payment plans, lease to own furniture, rent to own furniture. It's all the same batch of phrases. It's just with a heck of a lot of cheap payment plans type of word association that goes along with it. And then it's also having a price tag on there, having a price tag that's listed at a retail price, which is different than a rent to own price, but listing it at a retail price and advertising and marketing it.
Do you see, on those phrases alone, do you see the demographics of those phrases coming from a younger generation? Is it mid, let's say,
I can't
29
answer
to 30?
that.
You can't answer that?
You're not able to extract that type of data set from it. You can kind of I can tell you what the age demographics of a RTO website is, but I can't tell you the age demographics of a search phrase.
I got you. Okay. Because I'm just curious. Like, is it being flooded because there are young people who are predominantly on the internet all day, every day. I mean, in one shape or form. Usually it's a mobile device. Usually they're on it for, 2 or 3 minutes. They find what they want. They put it in their pocket. Another 2, 3 minutes. They're on it again. Another 2, 3. I mean, it's very secular. They get in there. They find it. They get off. They get in. And to me, that would build up the traffic for those terms. But, is it them? Is it somebody that's older and really who needs it? Or is it some young kid sitting there searching 5 different ways? Because I'm always curious about that. Like, who are we attracting now? Because I feel like, and I've got so much that I want to talk about on this, but I'm not going to do it on this one. But like, I feel like we are not getting new customers. We have a lot of customers that we're dealing with right now that have already been in rent to own. And so we kind of cycle through it. We use them, we get them, they fall off, they come back on, or they go to another, they could be at Aaron's today and then Buddy's tomorrow and then Rent a Center and then rent to own or whatever the case is. But the attraction of brand new customers who can say in a real sense, brand new, not I'm new because I wasn't on the books 2 months ago and now I'm on the books again. Okay, I get that. But you've seen rent to own, you've experienced it. But new customers, somebody who's never used rent before is falling off for the exact reasons that you said. Number one, we're not showing up the same way because now people are looking at that little box. Number two, you have the VRTO or these online guys that can really, they're taking a big chunk of the market share, Acima itself, Klarna, all these guys. The buy now, pay later is a part of, somewhere where it's like, hey, you can divide this up into 4 payments. I mean, I got credit card bills that come in, I go buy a pair of shoes and I turn around and I got email, split this into 4 payments. I don't want to do that. But there are people out there who are very much like, that sounds great. If I only got to pay $25 a month for my brand new shoes so that I can go to work, I can go to school, I can do whatever. That's great. How in God's name are we comparing with that? How are we competing with that in our RTO world?
Great question. I mean, I'm of the mindset, and this is where I think the RTO book was helpful to me in the sense that I was able to go through the discovery process and learn about the history in ways that I didn't understand before. And for me, the takeaway of doing the book was understanding the cultural or societal role that RTO has historically played, where it has fit in the larger socioeconomic structure of society. So I would push back and say that to some regards, yes, there aren't a lot of new customers coming in, but I would attribute most of that to there's a significant amount of demographics that would traditionally be RTO that are just getting peeled off by buy now, pay later. I mean, we can't argue about how insane that rise has been. Something like $30 billion of revenue has peeled off that, let's call it that historic top 25% of the RTO customer base. That's a reality. That's a societal change. Society has changed as a result. And you go back and you look. So layaway did the same thing. That was something that happened in the past. After layaway was credit cards. So credit cards started doing that. Or sorry, there maybe there's credit unions before that and then to credit cards. But it's the same thing. There's always been somebody or something that pulls away part of the market. The thing about that is RTO has to adapt to find where their new place in that societal structure is. And I think that's arguably the place that we are at now. What are the opportunities inside of rent-to-own? Because the reality is it's not as if the demographic has went away. Arguably, the demographic has gotten more and more prevalent over the past couple of years. And the fact that buy now, pay later has taken as much market share as it has. Not only that there's demand, but there's more demand for this than anyone ever imagined or thought.
I got 4 letters that has been rolling around in my mind, and every time I say it, everybody acts like it's the 4-letter word, but these 4 letters are not BNPL, it's VRTO, and it is, I feel like it has come to stay. I mean, Progressive is growing, Acima is going through its steps, but it's still growing.
Yeah.
Is it in a world that Ryan Crass is watching as you're looking through your screen? Is that a possibility that there is a chunk of RTO that is just going to have to go that route in order to be relevant?
Good question. I'm not going to say I have the answer. What I would say is it is clear that the demand is there. So let's start with that. It's clear that there's a consumer demand. You're seeing it skyrocket. I think you can look and understand. Now we're talking about playing the players. So now we're talking about playing the players. Aaron's and Rent a Center. Aaron's reverse merger with Catapult, clearly heading the exact direction you just specified.
You know where I was going with this then.
Yeah, of course. Acima, if you look at Rack's earnings over the last 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, you can just, if you do nothing other than look at the position of where they put ACEMA on their earnings reports, it tells you what their priorities are.
Oh,
And
exactly.
you look at Aaron's and Rent-A-Center, and you see two companies who have shed, I think Rack shed 100 stores last year, and I think Aaron's did 80, give or take, somewhere in that ballpark. And I think Buddy's did their thing, and I believe 70-ish stores peeled off or
Yep.
something like that. I
Yep.
don't know the exact numbers, but somewhere
Very
in that
close to that.
ballpark.
Yes. Yeah.
So you've got these three players that are all shedding stores, which is where now we're talking my personal belief. It's both an opportunity and a problem. The opportunity is VRTO or VLTO doesn't work if you can't pick up the product.
I feel like that's the precipice we're on right now. That it is a new thing, and people are going, this is a new way for me to get it. It's easy to get. I don't have to talk to anybody. I can literally be on my phone, do everything that I have to do because they make a mobile friendly version that actually really works. They get somebody to deliver it, which is easy. Getting somebody to deliver it is easy. There are literally industries out there to deliver.
Yes.
The question now is, and this is the biggest part of the VRTO or the VLTO question, because in regular rent to own, you get to call somebody and say, hey, I don't want it anymore. And they come and get it. And there's no credit situation left on the table. It is a done deal. Now, VLTO, VRTO, they say, hey, we're going to have it delivered. And you can have it delivered from anywhere because it doesn't have to be one particular person. It could be anybody in delivery saying, hey, it's Bob's delivery. Well, Bob, we're going to include this in the price. We're going to give you this set price. You go to the second floor, first floor, this is a set price. Boom, done. Nobody that I know of that does any type of deliveries also has it set to do pickups because that's in a nutshell is its own thing. I mean, you've got a whole different situation when you're picking up something that's been pre-leased before. You have to know what you're doing. Number one, it's a different ballgame when somebody wants you to come in versus somebody who is like very iffy about this transaction now. And then when you finally get it back, now the real big elephant in the room. What do you do with it? Because not only do you have to bring it back, you have to refurbish and you have to resell. You have to get it back. The basic economics, depreciation, how much you sold it for, whether it's $20 a week, $40 a week, doesn't matter. If they only kept it a month or 2 months, you didn't get all your money back. You've got the advertising, you've got delivery, you've got the storage, you've got the first order, you've got everything that goes along with that. I don't know how they're going to fix that. I don't know where it goes from here, but is it another cyclical thing where it's on the uprise now for the first 18 months, let's say 20 months? Then things start happening. People go, I can't afford it anymore. This is the situation. I either have credit available to me now and I want to go through this means, or I don't have enough expendable income because inflation has just kept going to a point where everything that I've had stored up is gone. And now I have $50 left over and it's not enough to make the payment. And I'm being a responsible person. Come pick it up. And the VLTO crowd is going, okay, I can't handle 30 pickups a week because I have no place to store this. Do you possibly see that as this is the rise and it could be a meteoric fall because it doesn't really follow the norms of how RTO works?
I mean, my personal opinion is yes, but what I would say is what we have not seen is we have not went through an actual recession or credit cycle with buy now, pay later and or VLTOs. Klarna has their default rate modeled at like 50 basis points. So less than 1% is what they're estimating a default rate is. I can't imagine a real recession or a real economic calamity, which we haven't had in 20 years. We haven't had in our adult lives for all intents and purposes. What happens in that scenario? To me, that's the real determining factor. And you're seeing the first indications. It's just the first indications that they're starting to tighten. Like when I look at this, I like looking at buy now, pay later car companies because they do have some public information and they'll tell you if they tighten credit standards or loosen them. So buy now, pay later cars have started to tighten credit standards in the past couple months. There's been no indication that Klarna or Affirm have done that yet. I guess we're going to find out. I think it's sometime mid next month. We'll know if they've remotely had any type of default or increase in default. But the buy now, pay later guys, the buy now, pay later car people have absolutely modeled in higher default rates. And we're talking like going from like 30 to 40% default rates, which is crazy.
Right.
But, Klarna at 50 basis points of a default rate is just insane to me. But maybe they have that good of a data set that they can do that. So, no, I'm of the mindset you got to go through one of these. You got to go through one recession, and a lot of these guys are going to get zeroed out.
Hey everyone, it's Pete Chow here from the RTO Show podcast, and I want to tell you about a company that's making a real difference in the rent-to-own space. Wow Brands. I've seen firsthand how they approach marketing. And let me tell you, it's not just about ads. Wow Brands builds complete digital ecosystems designed specifically for the rent-to-own industry. Their e-commerce and lead generation strategies are built to bring in qualified leads. And did I mention that they are actively working with the rent-to-own industry while also being members of APRO and TRIB? Listen, these folks are passionate problem solvers. They don't just slap something together. They design, build, and scale the kind of digital retail tools your business needs and your customers actually want. So if you're serious about growing, reach out to Wow Brands at wowbrands.com. I trust them, and I think you will too.
Well, it's mind-boggling to me because going through the book that I have been, and we're talking about the RTO revolution, and this is basically the history of RTO from day one all the way till current. So as I'm going through this and I'm reading a lot of it, the ability to even be able to do rent to own was fundamentally based on the fact that you can say, you know what? I can't afford it. This is not a credit-based transaction. You get to take your stuff, and I never have to worry about you bothering me again. As long as you walk in and got the same sofa that you delivered, there's nothing left, whether it's a washer and dryer, whether it's a TV, whether it's needs or not needs. You come and get it, it's over. And then as the RTO business model evolved, it was like, okay, I'm going to take that. I'm going to do everything I can to make it right. Make sure it's refurbished, make sure it's clean, make sure it's good, price it accordingly, and then put it back out. Now, that whole situation, and I don't have the answer. And listen, if you are part of VRTO or VLTO, please reach out to the RTO Show podcast because I want to talk to you. I want to know where it goes. How are they taking care of it? And the biggest part is this, and this is where RTO has always faltered because it's very difficult. If you get a pre-leased item back, are you putting it back on the website? Or are you taking a picture of it after it's been refurbished, after it's been cleaned, taken care of, parts, checked, moved, fixed, whatever the case is, and put it back out there? And usually the answer is no. Usually you have a static picture of the first brand new item it is, and then otherwise you'd have to contact the store and they'll send you pictures and you kind of work it out that way. Okay. Do you have somebody at the warehouse that's doing it when because VRTO covers way more area than a single store, right? A single store,
Yep.
Primary area is 5 miles, and now it's getting a little bit bigger because obviously we have to, right? That's just like you said, there's hundreds of stores that close down. I don't want to add another store because it's going to be very expensive, but if I could take some of that territory, I'll absolutely do 7 miles, 10 miles, whatever, and extend my delivery area out to 15. Okay, perfect. But it still comes back to one location. Now, on the RTO side, I might need a bigger warehouse. I might need to get storages because now I'm covering a bigger area, which means more stuff comes back. If you're in VRTO or VLTO, you could cover 30 to 50 square miles from one, delivery center. Wait a minute. Where do you put 50 miles worth of inventory if it comes? That's the part that I'm like, I don't understand, because when people are looking for things and they're going through the websites, this is a great opportunity for them, but it's also a logistical nightmare if you don't know how to handle that.
Well, it is. And I would make the statement that the majority of the VLTO are just modeled on the assumption that you're going to keep the product. That's the inherent assumption built into the product, because you're going to, let's say, an Ashley Home store and then using a SEMA to finance the product while you're there. It's not in this type of scenario. I believe the rule is like it's whatever the manufacturer, whatever the retailer, if it's a 30 to 60 day warranty, it's honored by the store. My understanding is after 60 days or whatever that default time period is, like in the case of a SEMA, RAC's going to come pick it up. They're going to pick it up and do whatever they need to do with that inventory. Aaron's is clearly heading in that same direction. That's why they are, at least apparently, that is why they're doing the reverse merger with Catapult, to be able to have access to that same type of distribution network. There seems to be, there's another, I got an article coming out about this. There's another couple, I'd say another 7 of those that are, let's say, relatively high dollar value that have all worked out their own form of logistics and how they're going to pick the product up and what they're going to do and how they're going to dispose of it. But I mean, their models are all built on the assumption that somebody's going to keep the product. It is when they don't keep the product that it starts to fall apart.
Well, I can tell you, RTO's been through this, guys. It's going to get rough. You're going to be on a bumpy ride. Just let you know it's coming. As you were going through and you said you were feeding the machine, you said there were 5 pillars. The 5 pillars of,
Yep.
Can you tell me what the 5 pillars are and what are those? What's the relevance of those 5 pillars?
Yeah, so as we did a presentation for all of our customers, I believe last month or 2 months ago, and we'll probably actually cover this at a shameless plug at the APRO show next month. Charles and I are going to be talking about this. But for me, there's really 5 core pillars to this. The first one is relevance, and this is how does the store match what the customer is searching for, and does it match what the customer's need is? And relevance is really determined by the question that's been asked inside of the AI tool or chat tool, whatever it is, and then what is on your website? What does your website say about it? If you are a website that is focused on, if 99% of your content is about appliances, you're probably not going to rank for PS5s. Just simple as that. So it's relevant. Is the content, is the information on the website relevant to what the consumer is looking at? Website information, product pages, product descriptions, title, all of those things. It also includes things like inventory and product data. And inventory is something that has become was not as important 2 years ago, but as you get into 2026, especially as AI is relying more and more on product inventory levels, is becoming higher and higher importance. It wants to know that is what you have on your website available? Can I have it within a week? Can I have it within 2 weeks? Is it going to take me 6 months to get it? That part becomes more and more important. And then the third part about relevance is, what does the rest of the world say about you? How do other people talk about you? What are the reviews say? And this is when I was talking earlier about what is the opportunity for the mom and pop, smaller guys. This is where you have the opportunity to win locally in ways in which an Aaron's and a Rent-A-Center can never compete with you. That is, you have to provide better service and you've got to get reviews. You do those 2 things. Reviews are simply the number one determining factor in who is going to be shown and returned back for a local business. So if you're in Tampa, Florida, and you're doing rent to own and you have no reviews, you're not showing up. Simple as that. And if you've got, I think both Rent King and Happy's are down there, and both of those have a hell of a lot of reviews in Tampa. They're going to show up over Aaron's and Rent-A-Center almost every time. Why? Because they have better review data. So that's the next thing. And then the last part of this is really, what are the other directories saying about you? Relevance is really determined of not necessarily so much about what you say about yourself, but what do other people say about you? So as part of this, things like Apple Maps become more and more important. Yelp, Better Business Bureau, Facebook, VRTO, category directories, local chamber of commerce sites, data aggregators, all of those things are going to be the determining factor of and throughout these pillars, these are truly the determining factors of, is a business considered a winner or a loser in the AI specs? Because what AI tools are trying to do is give you back the right answer always. If they don't give you the right answer back, you're not going to use them ever again. So the worse results you get, the more inclined somebody isn't to use it. So the real goal of this is, how do I make sure that the first pillar is, how do I make sure it's relevant? The second pillar is proximity. And these are all kind of related to the same thing. This is a dumbed down version of the first one. I don't want to return, if I'm in Columbus, Ohio, the last thing I want to do is return back a plumber in Waco, Texas. Makes absolutely no sense. Or a rent-to-own store in California. It makes no sense at all. So the second part of this is proximity. And this is just having your Google Maps set up, which everybody should already have at this point. You need to have pages on your website for every one of the markets that you're in. So not markets, but every city that you're in. You've got to be able to show that you're a real local company. Service areas. What are the areas that you're going to deliver to? Are you going to go 5 miles out, or are you going to go 50 miles out? That's pretty basic, but these are let's just say core pillars to showing up or ever ranking in AI. Third one is trust. Does the market know that you're a real company? That's one of the big things about AI. There's no concept of truth. It has to rely on all these third-party data sources to know, is the business real? Is it reliable? Have the last 50 people that we've sent to this rent-to-own store given us 0-star reviews or 1-star reviews and said they ripped us off? Because if they're going to do that, why are we ever going to put somebody there? Right. So again, I'm going to keep going back to, throughout this process, reviews, because the reviews are the trust proxy or the authority inside of AI and inside of Google. They have no way of knowing who's a real business and what's a real business, and are they good or bad or whatever. That is truly relying on reviews in most scenarios to determine is somebody good or bad. The fourth pillar I got is clarity. Does AI and can AI know who you are, and does it understand what you're doing? If you're a plumber that is talking about rent to own, probably not relevant. If you're rent to own talking about plumbing, probably not relevant. But if you're a rent to own who has a ton of good information about washers and dryers and cheap appliances in your market, you're probably going to dominate that market. There's this whole concept in Google of zero gain. And the logic behind this is if I've got 5 different websites that are all showing a PS5, if there's nothing new gained from any of those 5 websites, then they're all the same thing. What do I care? That's how Google perceives it. There has to be new information gained from going to the website of whatever RTO dealer. And if there's not, they're not relevant. So it's got to be able to show what is going on, clearly determine what it is, have good FAQs on the website, have inventory, have availability. You just have to be able to clearly articulate who you are and what you're doing. And then the last part of this is authority. Arguably I would say probably second most important pillar here. And authority is, how do you know what's important? And this goes back to just the foundation of how Google was built. The way that you know what is important is based off of how many other people are talking about what's important. Truth or trust or authority is really a byproduct of how many other people are talking about this. So rent-to-own store with 20 reviews, or a rent-to-own store with 1,000 reviews, or a rent-to-own store with 10,000 reviews. Well, one with 10,000 reviews, probably the authority and probably the leader here. And that includes, it's not just Google reviews, it's what are other websites talking about you. Things like local press becomes more important today than it has in 10 years, 20 years. If your local newspaper is talking about you, you're relevant all of a sudden again. So it's a weird, we spent 20 years of going to an online only type of world just to slowly start heading back the other direction now, because we need real people to tell us where the authority is at, who's the right place to go to.
Wow. I mean, God, there's so much to unpack on that. I mean, going into the last leg of this, there's so many things I want to ask. When you said something that really kind of stuck out with me. If it's not new, right? If there's 5 PS5s and you kind of all really saying the same thing, it's all the same thing, then there's really nothing new there for it to go off of. Does that mean that the website needs to be revamped or reworded or something added, subtracted, and tweaked on a regular basis? Is that like a 3-month cycle? Is that a 6-month cycle? Like, what is the way to get around that?
Well, part of it is, so in the case of PS5s, the reality is how many different companies next to you are really renting a PS5. The answer is maybe 3 of them, maybe 2 of them, maybe 1. You don't know. But it's not a large number. The first thing is you got to have just product information is more and more important today than it has been in a long time. If you don't have good product information, specs, details, photos, descriptions, all of that stuff, AI cannot recommend you to a consumer without knowing that the PS5 or the product that you have is actually what the consumer is looking for. Generally means you can't make up your own SKUs anymore. I mean, I know that's one of the problems we have in the furniture and appliance world, but you can't make up your own SKUs anymore because these are no longer, you need to be able to show clearly, this is the product that I have. This is all the details and specs on it. It is the same product as these other 10 people have. And I know there's parts of that we don't want to do, but you've got to have clear and articulate information. You got to have good photos. You've got to have good descriptions. Some of the best product sells that we have seen are when our dealers go through and will do a YouTube video of their product and just show, here's what the product is. Here's the video of how it works. This is how the couch reclines. This is how you use the electric footrest. Those types of things, those have impacts because that's new incremental information that Google didn't have before. And you don't need to do that across all your products. But the reality is I could probably tell you there are 20 products that represent 70% of your business anyways. So do those 20.
Yeah. Well, so I'm going to ask you this, and I'm going to ask you for 2, not just 1. I want to make it a little bit harder than normal. Okay. 2 things. If somebody is in the rent-to-own space right now, thinking about getting into the rent-to-own space, or they are a legend in the rent-to-own space, with this AI information, with the online information, with the search information, what is the 2 most important things that they can do to stand out from the competition that they have online?
I'm going to say one that is just to me, it's completely obvious. Good data. And what does that mean? Good data. Your objective is no longer to get them to your website. It's still part of the goal. It's not the only thing. Your job is to feed the machine, because when we're sitting here in 12 months, the discovery process is going to most likely exist at a level before your website. And if you are not feeding the right information and the right data to the right places at the right time, you're invisible. And I think that's probably just the biggest mind shift that has to happen in marketing and arguably in, I guess, technology in general. And I think that's, if you feed AI tools the right data and that data in the right structure, the output you're going to get is phenomenal. But if you don't feed the right data in the right structure, the output you're going to get is chaotic and it'll be a hallucination. In most cases, you're going to get just junk data because you're not feeding the right data to the right place at the right time. So for me, data is without a question the number one most important thing as you think about the next 12 months inside of not just RTO and any retail type of company. I would say that's probably without a question, for me, number one and number two. I'm not sure if that's a cop out, but it is without a question. Feeding the right data to the right place is all that really matters for the next 12 months.
Okay. Well, listen, guys, that is the information that you guys want to follow, because let me tell you, there's a lot going on in that space. If you don't know what's going on, you need to hit up Ryan Krass at Wow Brands. They've got a lot for you. He's the CEO, the CFO, or CTO, right? It's the CTO now.
Whatever you want.
Whatever he is, he's got the answers. You want to follow him also on LinkedIn, please do. He's got a lot of things on there that is amazing things. It's kind of where I found some of this at. If you guys want to have any discussion about what's going on, please hit me up at the RTO show on any social media, or Pete at the RTOshowpodcast.com. Feel free to email me at any time, any part of the day. I will get back to you as soon as possible, because I love talking to you guys. I love receiving mail. Also, make sure that you go on the website, the RTOshowpodcast.com. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. And I want to take something out of Ryan's book. If you guys are seeing this, if you guys are listening to this on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, go rate us. Just go into the rating and then say, you know what? Rate me on there. Let me know how I'm doing. Say, listen, man, this guy's everything RTO, and we love that. We want to hear more of it. Put that on there. Also, if you want to be a sponsor and you're not an industry sponsor, you can also do individual sponsorships, $3, $5 a month. Hit me up on the website. We'll make sure that happens. Ryan, I appreciate you. Listen, knowledge drops like every 5 seconds, man. I appreciate that. I love talking to you because, I don't get to nerd out with everybody like I do with you. We get to talk some really good stuff about things that I don't get to talk about on a regular basis. You are killing it, and Wow Brands is too, so I appreciate it. Listen, guys, thank you so much. And remember, get your collections low to get your sales high. Have a great one.